Shemai Pretty and welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and let's get into starting a brand new wetland zoo for the Wetlands Animal Pack. And if you watched my review, overview, animal showcase, never really know what to call those, you will recognize this zoo. It is the Karst Mire Scenario Zoo. I really liked it. I thought it was really pretty, and I thought it would also kind of give me a bit more of a challenge to already work with the water that's already on the map instead of just winging it and putting whatever water I fancied in. And I really like this sort of pond lake here, and it's right at the start of the map, and I thought this would be a perfect place to put the entrance building. And I wanted to make sure that this entrance building had everything you need to start a zoo, so I wanted to do all of the staff buildings and the entrance in one big building. So I kind of give myself two squares to have the staff buildings on the one side and the entrance building on the other, and it's going to be on this like dock, all elevated off the ground. So I started with the staff buildings, and then I wanted to make sure that the staff could actually access all of these, because I've done a two-story sort of staff building, and the path that goes over into the other side, that's going to be like a joined walkway, because I want this to be kind of modern. I haven't really gone with a majorly modern style with any of my builds before, and I wanted the style to be kind of new, a little bit fresh, because I feel like I've built everything that I'm comfortable with now, I guess. The entrance was kind of trickier than I thought it would be. It was just like, oh yeah, just a guest spawner thing and the ticket entrance thing. I didn't realize how fiddly it was gonna actually be, especially with all of the paths already set out. But I thought I would have this as like a more realistic entrance building, because usually when you go to parks or zoos, when you go in, you grab your tickets from like a shop, and those types of shops would then offer you like maps and extra experiences like fast passes when you're in a theme park. So I wanted to add in some information shops before the guests go through the ticket entrance part. Straight from the spawner, then you'll have the two information shops on the, I guess, right? What? Well, just on that side. Why am I so bad with my left and right? So if I'm facing that way, yeah, it's on the right. I wanted the guests to kind of look like they were going to the information shop to buy their tickets before they went through the little gate, so it feels a little bit more realistic. And I wanted to have a look at some colour schemes that feature blue, and I was just going through lots of different colour palettes to find something that felt quite fresh, kind of summery. I didn't want this to be specifically summer because we've just done a season zoo, but I wanted something to feel quite bright and cheerful, and still like feature blues to go with the wetlands theme. And I found this one color palette. It was called Atomic, Tangerine, Pacific Blue and Yale Blue, and I thought Atomic Tangerine just sounded really fun. And it had quite bright colours, oranges, peachy colours with like a dark blue and like a turquoisey greeny blue, which just felt kind of watery to me, but with like a nice bright pop in it. That's why I decided to wear this jumper today. Plus it's gonna start getting too warm to wear my cute rainbow jumpers soon. And to pick the material that I wanted to build this for, I grabbed lots of different base game flexi color walls, because I wanted this to be base game because there's no build items really with the Wetlands pack, and I just picked the one that had the nicest like tealy green color, because this is going to be sort of the main color. And even though the plaster colors, the ones on the end, were more of a true color to the color palette, I really liked the limestone because it was like a pastel version. I have no idea why the same color number comes up at all those different colors with the different materials. One of my top tips though for building anything like this, it doesn't have to be majorly complicated, but if you are going to do something that's a little bit more fiddly is start building on the world axis. And the way you can make sure that your building is on the world axis is either when you first start building, just completely straight away place a wall down, do not rotate it. Or if you have rotated it, you can go into the advanced move, which is X, and right on the left of the advanced move UI, you've got like a refresh button. It kind of looks like a refresh, like a circle with an arrow, and that will automatically align the object to the world axis, so everything can be. And to go with like the modern theme, I'm grabbing the New World windows, and I really like these windows because they've kind of got like a nice pattern to them, and it kind of looks like water reflecting through light, has that kind of refracted pattern, and those windows kind of look like that, so it fit in with the water theme as well. And I did notice that there was like a couple of gaps between the pier kind of pathway around the buildings and the inner pathways of the building. I wanted it to still feel kind of beachy, kind of like a pier, so I picked the kind of palette looking wood, just so if you really look closely you can see the water underneath the building, just in certain places, but you can't see it fully when you're like zoomed out like this, and the guests will never like fall through those gaps anyway because they will only ever walk on the paths. This build actually took me over 8 hours to build. I think it was partly because I didn't really have a concrete image in mind for it, and I had to play around a little bit. Like for this, for example, I did realise the turquoisey colour is a bit much. So I decided that I was going to keep the mint colour on the inside of the building and have the outside of the building be this peachy colour. I did look into like the exact definition of wetlands when the pack was announced. It seems obvious what it is, like wetlands, water, obviously, but I wasn't sure about the exact definition of it. It helped me pick this map actually, because wetlands are unique ecosystems that are either permanently or seasonally inundated with water, supporting species that are adapted to live there. This seems like it's the type of area where these bodies of water have been filled because of heavy rain, even though I'm going to keep it nice and sunshiny in the whole map just because of the lighting. When it's raining, it's really dark. And for the walkway between the staff building and the entrance building for the staff to get up and down the stairs, I wanted that to be fully glass. So I felt really modern and kind of corporate. Like you can kind of imagine this being on like an office building where like staff would walk along the walkway to get to a different part of the building. And I found the sides of the building kind of looked a bit plain, and this side of the building is going to be viewed from the main pathways that are going to go around the zoo. I've got some elevated pathways, which is what I'm going to plan for the guests to use, and the lower pathways then will be just for the staff so they can get to the habitats. So the peach colour is going to be like the outside of the building. And even though there's no windows on some of the interior of the building, I'm still going to add those peach outer windows, and the window then is going to look into the turquoisey blue colour. So now the building's basically got two different layers to it. It's got the outer peach layer and then the inner turquoise kind of colour. So it kind of doubles up everything that I need to do with this. And for the guest spawner, I needed something that was gonna make sense. Why would guests just come out of this little room? I thought lift, an elevator, but Planet Zoo's made in the UK, so I'm calling it a lift. I've put this silver door that kind of looks like an elevator lift door. Then I thought, like, to make it seem like you could press a button to call the lift up or down, I put those little triangles there and used the individual New World light bulbs for the string lights. as buttons in the arrows, and the arrows have got the orange and dark blue colour, which is part of the colour palette. And for above the information shops, I wanted to do an entrance mural because I'd seen that we did have some new animal signs for the new wetlands animals, and they look really cool. I really like the style of these, and I really liked that some of these kind of have this greeny watery patch to them, but not all of them do. So I bunched the 3 together that had the water underneath. The capybara was sitting down, and I thought, I'll just pop the capybara sat on top of one of the information signs. Thought he looked really cute there. And the name is actually not Welsh for a change, but my mum actually said that the map kind of looked like a safari map. So I'm just going to call it Wetlands Safari Park, kind of from my mum's idea. Obviously, after the entrance building, after I finish this, I'm going to start on a habitat. So which habitat animal should we start with? Preferably out of the Wetlands Animal Pack, but we have 7 habitat animals to pick from. And I wanted the writing to kind of go in a wave. The wave theme is going to carry on throughout this whole build. It looks very square and modern right now. Just you wait, or you've seen the thumbnail. What do you mean? Oh, you've seen the thumbnail, of course you see what the roof is going to look like. But yeah, the wave theme is going to go throughout the whole building then. And I wanted a little bit more contrast with the mural entrance wall to the rest of the interior walls. So I've gone with the darker blue. And I did realise I forgot the exhibit animal, the Danube crested newt. That's just typical of me. I really don't like the exhibit animals, but I did add it in because it has a nice orange belly, and the orange then goes with the colour scheme nicely. Now, the roof. I had an idea, and to map it out to start with, I wanted to use just the regular roofs with the different angles, just to kind of have a template. But obviously with the roof, it's not curved. It overlaps and kind of looks a bit jaggedy in places. Not the smoothest transitions from one angle to another, and I have overlapped some, so you have some bits sticking out, which doesn't look the nicest. And I knew this roof was going to be a big pain, so I started the roof in a completely different group to the main building. Another top tip there, if you're doing something a little bit more complicated, split it from your main group, create a whole new group, so then you can move it, change it easier, separate from your main building. It's the same with like sort of things like flower planters, things like that. Separate them from your group just so you can duplicate them nicely and multi-select them without selecting things you don't want. I'm actually using these timber pieces from the East Asian style, still base game. Looked at these a lot when I was building in my East Asian zoo, and I really loved the texture of this wood, but it was always too big for anything I was building. When I was thinking about things that I could use for this huge roof, that was kind of the first thing I thought of. So you don't always have to use the roof pieces to create a roof. You can use the roof pieces as a template and then create your own roof using non-grid props. And now I have angle snap off, and I'm just trying to smooth some of the curves out. So any of the like more sharper edges, I was just duplicating the wood panels and trying to curve them nicely around to kind of blend the curves in. I kind of like that it's not just like 2 waves, and it does have some curves in between the 2 waves going along the staff building down into the entrance building, just so it's like more water themed, I guess. Needed to solidify what shape I wanted for the roof before I started trying to create the walls, to blend the walls to the roof. And this was tricky, not completely impossible to do. Was lucky that there are limestone panels now. Never used to be, I don't think. But basically I just needed to like fill in the gaps and make sure that none of the walls were poking through the roof. So it looks like it's like really curvy, like I've built the walls curvy, but none of them are actually curvy. They're all straight. It's just I've merged them into the roof a little bit, so it looks like it's curving underneath the roof, where it's just kind of hodgepodge jammed into the roof until it looks smooth. I kept the roof off, sort of. I kept just the first row that I'd built and kept the rest open so I could then see where I needed to place the walls without having everything enclosed. It gets really dark when it's enclosed, and you can use the L key to create like a little torch if it's dark, if you're building at night or you're building inside a building or in a cave. You can use the L as a torch, but it still doesn't really illuminate that much. So it's just easier to have everything open as you're building and then enclose the whole building in the roof. And the nice walkway between the staff building and the entrance building, that was a little bit more fiddly to fill in the gap. The smallest panel was 1 by 2. And it was just too big for that area, so I used, I think it's a wall topper. I'll write down what it's actually called. One side is slightly curved with like a lined pattern in it, and then the other side is flat, so that's all you have to do is use the flat side. But let's skip past quite a lot of like the repetitiveness of it, because obviously there's a lot of duplication. I can build a certain part and then I'll duplicate it just to make everything quicker. So skip past a lot of the duplicating part. It's the same sort of technique all the way around. I just needed to make sure that the outside and the inside walls lined up to the roof nicely. But when I had a look over the build once I'd finished the roof, I felt like the windows looked like they were like empty. So I wanted to do some window frames. This is like the last bit that I had chance to do. I'd run out of time by then. I literally did that today, just before I started recording this. But I wanted to use the darker blue colour to tie in with the mural wall for the entrance, and to also give a contrast to the peach. Shows that they're actually windows, not just holes in the walls. But even if it was just a hole in the wall, it'd be nice and breezy for the water side. They're not really thick because I still wanted it to feel quite modern, so I used the thinner painted wood from the East Asia style, and they're like my favourite pieces to create like windows and things like that because they're so thin, and they also go all the way down to 1 meter. And I basically just went around all of the windows that I'd already added into the buildings. A bit fiddly because none of the windows were in exactly the same place throughout the build, but it just gives that little bit of contrast, a little bit more of a pop of colour as well, that nice dark blue. Just a very quick look around the buildings. I will go back into this, add some lights, benches, other things to go around it, but we got the basic building done now, and I can add things to it as I go along. But it's probably one of the more realistic builds that I've done. Probably not necessarily majorly realistic, because nothing is when it comes to my ideas for builds. I also find this building kind of helpful because if you do want to download this and use it in your zoo, it's going to help start off a zoo straight away. Probably not the best for anything other than Sandbox because it's probably quite expensive. I never really look at how expensive my builds are, but it's helpful because you can literally pop this build down and start adding things to your zoo. You've got all of the staff buildings ready, you've got the entrance, and you've got some information booths, so it'll be nice and easy and quick to then start doing whatever you like in your zoo. And there's just lots of different ways that you can add to this as well. Like I'm going to add in lights and benches. You could even add shops and exhibits into this as well. But again, what habitat animal would you like to see me build a habitat for next? Preferably out of the Wetlands Animal Pack. but any sort of aquatic animals would be fun to build habitats for in this wetlands zoo. And I'm going to leave it off there. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload speed builds on Wednesdays and shorts tutorials on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!